So, what if I told you that pretty much everything we see on TV about high-end real estate, the drama, the rush, the super flashy marketing, is, well, mostly a myth? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden world of luxury property. We're going to see how the biggest deals are driven not by all that spectacle, but by a quiet, super disciplined strategy.
Okay, so when you hear the words luxury real estate, your mind probably jumps straight to the spectacle, right? The big open houses, the flashy marketing, that whole manufactured sense of urgency. But here's the thing. For the really sophisticated players, the reality is the complete opposite. It's a world that's all about discipline, patience, and maybe most importantly, discretion. And that's the huge shift in thinking we're diving into today.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we're going to redefine what luxury even means, because it's not just about the price tag. Then we'll bust the myth of visibility, talk about why patience is basically a superpower, and get into how to negotiate without your ego getting in the way. We'll wrap things up by looking at the core principles that hold this whole thing together, and we'll see that the real luxury, well, it turns out it's just good judgment.
All right, let's jump right in with our first section, Beyond the Price Tag. We're about to deconstruct the true definition of luxury and really challenge that most basic assumption about what makes a real estate deal a luxury transaction in the first place.
Okay, the very first myth we have to bust is this idea that luxury is just about a higher price point. You know, the thinking that a property magically becomes a luxury deal just because it hits some arbitrary number. That simple definition, it completely, totally misses the point of what makes these transactions so different.
So here's the reframe we need. A true luxury transaction, it isn't defined by price. It's defined by its fundamental increase in complexity. It's about the intense level of coordination needed and the fact that every single decision has huge long-term consequences. And what does that complexity actually mean in the real world? Well, for one, you've got extended timelines. These deals don't happen overnight. They're not quick flips. Then there's the heightened scrutiny from, every direction. And you've got way more stakeholders at the table. We're talking attorneys, financial advisors, lenders, the whole crew. All of this means that every single decision has lasting impact.
All right, let's move on to Section 2, the myth of visibility. This is where we explore why quiet can be a way more powerful tool than noise, especially when the stakes are this high.
Now, this next point is absolutely crucial, so let's just let it sink in for a second. Discretion is foundational to luxury real estate, not optional. It isn't some nice-to-have feature. In this world, it is the absolute bedrock of how things get done. It's totally non-negotiable.
So what's the big deal with discretion anyway? I mean, what's the goal here? Well, it's not about being secretive just for the sake of it. The real goal is to control information. Why? To mitigate risks to security and privacy, to protect your negotiating position, and to preserve the perceived value of the property. It's all about strategy.
So what this means is that good luxury marketing is the exact opposite of just, blasting a property listing out to the entire world. It's selective, it's deliberate, and every single move is aligned with a very specific outcome. It's not just about grabbing attention.
Okay, that brings us to our third big idea. Leverage isn't rushed. Here we're going to talk about the strategic value of patience and discipline, and really take apart this idea that you have to move fast to win. There's this huge myth out there that manufacturing urgency and moving quickly is how you create leverage in a negotiation. We see it all the time, right? The idea is if you push for fast decisions, you keep everyone off balance and you gain an advantage. But here's the crazy part. That is a perfect recipe for losing leverage. Think about it. It's a three-step process right to failure. Step 1, you create false urgency. Step 2, you start reacting to personalities instead of the actual situation. And Step 3, you rush key decisions. It's a trap.
No. True leverage comes from the complete opposite. It comes from patience, from real situational awareness, and from letting your strategy, not someone else's timeline, dictate the pace of the deal.
And that leads us perfectly into our fourth section, which is negotiating without ego. Because really, you can't have that kind of patience if your ego is in the driver's seat. This is all about focusing on the outcome, not just the win.
And you can really see the difference in mindset here. On one side, you've got the ego-driven approach. It's all about winning, price is the only thing that matters, and there are a lot of emotional reactions. But on the other side, you've got the strategy-driven approach. Here, the focus is on the best outcome. Principles and positioning matter just as much as price, and the whole thing is analytical.
Now, this next part is maybe one of the most crucial points of all. The idea that every deal has to close, that's an ego-driven trap. Sometimes the strongest possible move you can make is being willing to pause or even walk away completely.
So, what holds all of this together? What's it all built on? Well, that brings us to Section 5, the foundation of principles. We're talking about the non-negotiables of high-stakes representation.
It all comes down to these three core principles. First, professionalism under pressure. Second, a relentless curiosity. And third, non-negotiable ethics. These are the pillars.
You know, there's this great little piece of advice in the source material from a veteran luxury professional named Ellen DeHaven. Her advice was simple: stay curious. And that's so smart, right? Because when things get really complex, curiosity isn't a weakness, it's a discipline. It's what makes sure you don't take anything for granted.
And that brings up a really critical point. You might think that with high-value transactions, maybe there's some wiggle room on the rules, but it's actually the exact opposite. High-value transactions demand higher standards, not exceptions. Okay, and that brings us to our final section, where we're going to tie all of this together. It's called the real luxury, judgment. This is that final shift away from spectacle and toward real strategy.
So if there's one ultimate takeaway from everything we've talked about, it's this. In true luxury real estate, clients are not looking for volume or visibility. They're not impressed by the most listings or the biggest ads. They are looking for one thing above all else: judgment.
So, let's end with a question that you can apply to pretty much any high-stakes situation, not just real estate. In a high-stakes transaction, are you looking for more noise or are you looking for more signal?